Do you enjoy watching science fiction films where characters must face their inherent nature in icy, strange settings? If so, you are undoubtedly familiar with Rutger Hauer, one of the most iconic figures in this genre's history. Rutger Hauer was more than simply an actor. He was tall, blond, and had eyes that pierced the fog like swords. He was the epitome of liberation, defiance, and a profound, agonizing human sorrow. It's a feeling that only people who have been on the brink of life can really comprehend. Rutger Hauer's life wasn't your typical Hollywood tale, from his famous performance as Roy Batty in Blade Runner to his solo travels across the Australian outback in a trailer he made himself. It was a voyage of transcending all boundaries and continuing to battle and shine brightly till the very end. During the German occupation of the Netherlands during World War II, Rutger Hauer was born on January 23, 1944, in the Breukelen province of Utrecht. "I was born during the war, and I think that's why I have deep roots in pacifism," he said in an interview from 1981. "I'm scared of violence." Tuinke Mellema and Arend Hauer, his parents were both performers and educators who ran an acting school close to Amsterdam. 3 sisters were born to Rutger. In his own words, his parents focused more on their creative endeavors than on raising their kids. He was not very close to his father. Rutger later began to see writer Eric Hasselhoff Royal Zima as a father figure when they met while Soldier of Orange was being filmed. At an effort to foster his inventiveness, his parents enrolled Rutger at the Rudolf Steiner School. But when he was 15, he left school to enlist in the Dutch Merchant Navy, where he spent a year traveling the world in a freighter. Due to his congenital color blindness, which rendered him ineligible for jobs requiring the ability to discern between colors, his ambition of becoming a captain was dashed early. After returning home, Rutger worked at a variety of odd jobs and went to night classes to finish high school. After that, he enrolled at Amsterdam's Academy for Theatre and Dance to receive professional acting instruction. But when he made the decision to enlist in the Royal Netherlands Army, his academic pursuits were put on hold. Rutger received training to become a combat medic in the military. However, he opposed the employment of lethal weapons and quit the army after just a few months. He went back to acting school after leaving the service and received his degree in 1967. Early on, Rutger Hauer made his way to the stage. He made his stage debut as Yuri Sakis in the play Ajax when he was 11 years old. After graduating from Amsterdam's Academy for Theatre and Dance in 1967, he joined the toneelgroep No Order Compagnie theatre troupe, where he remained for 5 years, marking the beginning of his professional career. He not only learned the art during this time, but he also developed a unique language, the capacity to communicate through silence, gestures, and his eyes, that would eventually serve as his on-screen hallmark. His first significant turning point came in 1969. Hauer was given the lead in the medieval action epic television series Floris by director Paul Verhoeven. Rutger Hauer became a national celebrity overnight when Floris was a huge success in the Netherlands. The character was so popular that he returned to the part in the German adaptation, Floris von Rosemond, in 1975. But for Hauer, domestic triumph was never enough. He was once more selected by Verhoeven for the lead in Turkish Delight, Turk's Fruit, in 1973. The movie had a significant impact, gaining Hauer international renown and an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Language Film. Hauer's emotional force was fully released as Eric, a raw, instinctual artist who loved intensely but also carried a profound, painful sadness. Tough, untamed but brittle. Turkish Delight demonstrated that he was an actor with uncommon emotional depth, in addition to being a remarkable looker. After this achievement, Hauer started aiming for a global audience. He co-starred with Sidney Poitier and Michael Caine in The Wilby Conspiracy, his debut English-language motion picture, in 1975. Hauer's supporting performance in the political drama, which was set against the backdrop of apartheid South Africa, went mostly ignored in Hollywood, and he continued to concentrate on his career in Europe. Many performers may have been disheartened, but Hauer silently readied himself for a greater jump. In order to live on the go and be prepared to seize any opportunity, wherever it may be, he himself created a travel trailer. That trailer evolved beyond a mere means of transportation. It turned into a living testament to the independence and self-determination Rutger Hauer sought all of his life. "I didn't wait for a door to open in Hollywood. I constructed the door myself." He traveled around Europe and then America in this self-made trailer, which acted as a makeshift home where he could write, live and escape the hectic world of the movie business. Hauer continued to build his profile in the Netherlands, with notable films as he awaited a break abroad. Tipple, Katie 1975. Hauer, who once more worked with Verhoeven, portrayed people who endured societal injustices, his acting becoming more harsh and genuine. Orange Soldier, 1977. In one of the best Dutch World War II movies, Hauer played a man divided between his morals and his instincts for survival, the type of nuanced role he would go on to play in Hollywood. Spetters, 1980. A very contentious movie, because of its unvarnished depiction of ambition, sexuality, and social ruin. Hauer's portrayal as an uncompromising artist was strengthened by his performance in Speeders, which demonstrated his readiness to take on projects that defied commercial expectations. He often worked with actor Jeroen Krabbe in several of these movies, creating a dynamic team that influenced a new wave of Dutch performers. Rutger Hauer made his Hollywood set debut in the action movie Nighthawks in 1981, co-starring with Sylvester Stallone. It was a difficult start. The majority of the movie was filmed at night. It was a demanding timetable. Additionally, Hauer learned of the deaths of his mother and best friend while production was underway. He almost gave up his Hollywood career before it had even started due to personal anguish and the harsh reality of the American movie business. However, fate had more in store for him. Director Ridley Scott gave Rutger Hauer the chance to become an enduring figure in film history in 1982 when he cast him as Roy Batty in Blade Runner. The dystopian future of Blade Runner, which is based on Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, is one in which biologically modified creatures called replicants, who are almost identical to humans, are made to do strenuous and hazardous tasks for mankind. In order to keep the replicants under control, their inventors imposed two basic restrictions: a 4-year lifetime cap to prevent rebellion, and the prohibition of emotional development from birth. Dr. Tyrrell developed Hauer's character Roy Batty on January 8, 2016, as a Nexus 6 replicant with the explicit purpose of serving as a combat trooper in off-world military operations. Roy starts to feel feelings after years of surviving in a world of death and battle, particularly a deep fear of dying, which is unusual for recently formed replicants. Roy and the other 4 replicants rebel because of this dread. They take control of a spacecraft, murder 23 people in an off-world colony, and then return to Earth with the sole intention of extending their lives. Rutger Hauer saw right away after reading the script that Roy Batty could not be reduced to a murderous machine. According to Hauer, Batty was a living contradiction, a fierce warrior with a delicate, innocent spirit that shuddered before destruction. Hauer applied all of the skills he had developed on stage to the role. Awkward yet forceful gestures, heartbreaking silences, and eyes heavy with dread and philosophy. Like a child learning to master its own body, Roy Batty was transformed into more than just a villain under Rutger Hauer's leadership. He turned Batty into Blade Runner's emotional core, a representation of the drive to live and the human element in a society that had long since lost its empathy. The last scene is the apex of this representation. Roy had the opportunity to exact retribution when Rick Deckard killed his lover Pris. Instead, as Deckard is about to fall from a rooftop, he saves him. Roy is sitting in the chilly rain at that very time, holding a white dove. Rutger Hauer changed the whole speech the night before that scene was filmed because he thought the previous words were too robotic. He added what would turn out to be some of the most iconic lines in film while maintaining just 2 brief lines. "We'll lose all those times," similar to raindrops. No music, no ostentatious dramatic effects, just a low voice, clouded eyes, and the sound of rain hitting a roof that had been destroyed. Not only did that event save Roy Batty, it saved Blade Runner as a whole. Ridley Scott subsequently acknowledged that Blade Runner could have been doomed to failure without Hauer, and that last scene, and the Tears in Rain monologue became one of the most famous quotes in movie history. Blade Runner was more than just a humanization of Roy Batty. The movie demonstrated how replicants who lived long enough to experience true emotion became autonomous identities. Pris and Roy Batty were more than simply rebellious allies. Their designers had never foreseen the intense affection that tied them together. Roy's desire for immortality was mostly driven by his love for Pris. Roy was overcome with sadness after Pris was dead, but he decided to preserve Deckard's life rather than seek out mindless retribution. By doing this, Roy made Deckard and mankind at large see that replicants were sentient creatures with compassion, humanity, and the right to exist in the same fullness as other people, not just tools. Roy's passing was a moving elegy. He passed away quietly, allowing his spirit to dissolve into nature as he released a white dove into the dismal rain-soaked sky. The song was about the transient and valuable aspect of existence, even for manufactured creatures, and about memories that are both brittle and timeless. Blade Runner was not well received at its initial release. The movie received criticism for being overly philosophical, gloomy, and sluggish. It was nearly doomed to obscurity due to its box office failure. However, Blade Runner was reassessed throughout time and turned into an enduring icon of the cyberpunk genre, creating a whole new look for global filmmaking. Rutger Hauer's portrayal of Roy Batty made him a timeless representation of rebellious people, yearning for life, yearning for freedom, and beautiful even in tragedy. Brought in little over $26 million at the American box office, which was barely enough to pay for the film's production. The movie was criticized by several critics for being too chilly, too somber, and beautiful to look at yet emotionally empty. Warner Brothers made clumsy interventions because of concern that viewers wouldn't get the plot. Ridley Scott was forced to create internal monologues for Deckard, and even change the ending so that Deckard and Rachel fled together in a stupidly joyful ending. Despite their opposition, Hauer and Scott were unable to halt these alterations at the time. As a result of being grouped with the other unsuccessful films of that summer, Blade Runner quietly left cinemas amid the disappointment. Nobody could have imagined at the time that this particular movie, with its icy neon lights, never-ending rain, and eerie inquiry, "What makes us human?" would go on to completely alter the aesthetics and philosophy of science fiction movies for the following 30 years. Audiences didn't start to appreciate Blade Runner until the director's cut, which eliminated the narration and restored the film's original depressing conclusion, was made available in the 1990s. They understood that the film's failure was not due to its weakness. Because it was born before its time, it had failed. Roy Batty was undoubtedly a villain by legal standards, since he had committed murder. However, Roy was more sad than malevolent due to his innermost motivation, his hopelessness before dying, and his intense desire to live and love. He was the most agonizing illustration of the unfairness of a universe that produced sentient individuals yet denied them the right to exist. Not only was Roy Batty a breakout performance for Rutger Hauer, but it was also the time he made his mark on film history by developing a character archetype that had never been seen before. Roy Batty's themes of loneliness, defiance, and quiet yet powerful compassion in the shadows were there in every part he portrayed after that, from Lady Hawk to The Hitcher, from Sin City to Hobo with a Shotgun. Not only did Blade Runner revolutionize science fiction, but it also made Rutger Hauer a worldwide iconic figure with sorrowful eyes and a desire to live forever, like tears in the rain. As the 1980s rolled around, Rutger Hauer kept growing his reputation among viewers by playing a variety of parts, from rebellious souls to heroes, from chivalrous knights to villains. He played the role of Knight Navarre, who was condemned to live apart from the woman he loved, in the fantasy epic Lady Hawk in 1985. The chilly alpine areas of France and Italy served as the backdrop for the filming, and Hauer frequently had to wear armor weighing more than 20 kilograms while riding horses across dangerous terrain. It's interesting to note that Hauer was so attached to the huge and obstinate horse he rode in the movie, Goliath, that he attempted to purchase it after the shoot was finished. But as Goliath was already under contract for other projects, his offer was turned down. It's a minor detail, but it effectively captured the essence of Navarre, which Hauer personified as a man of devotion, fortitude, and profound emotion. Hauer's portrayal of the murderous hitchhiker John Ryder in The Hitcher, released a year later in 1986, left a lasting effect. Hauer did most of the risky feats alone, including fast-paced driving sequences without a stunt double, in defiance of shoddy safety precautions. Hauer stands motionless on a barren roadway, in the middle of an empty desert in one of the movie's most iconic shots, a scene that wasn't originally planned. Just prior to filming, Hauer made the recommendation with a straightforward yet astute justification: he ought to show up like death with no justification. That rash choice produced a terrifying scene that will go down in the annals of 1980s horror film. Rutger Hauer pushed himself once again in 1989, when he played blind veteran Nick Parker in Blind Fury, who defends others with a sword. He studied swordsmanship with Japanese instructors for 3 months in order to get ready for the part. He also practiced fighting and maneuvering while under a blindfold. Hauer was genuinely blind in a number of action sequences, but he managed to execute intricate movements without the assistance of a stunt double. He once remarked of the experience, "You have to feel when you can't see. It totally altered my behavior." Rutger Hauer surprisingly rose to fame in the UK during the late 1980s and early 1990s, thanks to a string of Guinness ads rather than movies. He was silent, enigmatic, and clothed in black in the advertisements. It's interesting to note that Hauer really disliked the flavor of Guinness beer. "I frequently had to spit it out following each scene involving drinking." However, the impact of the campaign was significantly more than anticipated. Guinness sales skyrocketed, and the British public came to intimately connect Rutger Hauer with a chic yet defiant elegance. His Hollywood career slowed when the 1990s rolled around. His roles grew smaller in scope, but more varied in genre. But for Hauer, every character, no matter how great or small, was a chance to reinvent himself and never be the same person twice. His remarkable resurgence in the 2000s was demonstrated by his performances in Sin City 2005 and Batman Begins 2005, both of which were handled with restraint and the breadth of a lifetime. And in 2011, far into his 60s, Rutger Hauer once again dazzled audiences with A Shotgun in Hobo, changing into a shotgun-wielding rebellious homeless guy to retribute a city in decline. It was the manifesto of a lone man battling for what was left of justice, not merely a violent outburst. Rutger Hauer upheld one constant concept during this voyage. Every part was a blank canvas. There were no predetermined patterns or repetitions, just complete honesty with both the character and oneself. Rutger Hauer had a very dramatic personal life full of interesting elements that lay behind the genius of his timeless portrayals. Hauer married Swiss musician Heidi Mertz while she was very young, Aisha Hauer. Their daughter was born in 1966. However, their marriage disintegrated rapidly. The marriage terminated in a low-key manner shortly after Aisha was born. Hauer's first marriage was barely discussed. When he did it in private and acknowledged that he was too young, too busy, and didn't really get the meaning of long-term commitment at that point. He struggled to maintain a healthy family life due to his thriving work, constant travel, and more demanding assignments. He had a complicated connection with his daughter Aisha, who went on to become an actor. Despite having the same ancestry, Rutger Hauer and Aisha weren't always close. Father and daughter occasionally became apart due to Hauer's wandering lifestyle and guarded demeanor. In real life, Hauer also carried a loneliness that was difficult to identify, even though he frequently depicted lone individuals battling fate on television. When Rutger Hauer met Dutch painter and sculptor Ineke ten Cate in 1968, everything really changed. In the middle of early film productions and theater tours, Hauer discovered in Ineke a serenity and stability he had never experienced before. Although they became close quite soon, they took their time getting married. They made the decision to live together in silence, without much fanfare, away from stage lights and conventional expectations for 17 years. The independence in the connection provided the greatest basis for someone like Hauer, who rejected all molds. After over 20 years of friendship, Rutger Hauer and Ineke ten Cate were legally married in 1985. This was not because they required the title, but rather because they had shown the world and each other that love doesn't have to be shown, it only needs to last. Despite not having children together, they maintained an almost unbreakable relationship. Ineke was his quiet haven and the one who silently supported him behind the scenes when Hauer traversed the world for his film career. Additionally, Iniki co-founded the Starfish Foundation with Rutger Hauer to increase awareness of HIV/AIDS, and he carried on his charitable endeavors after him. The straightforward, patient and devoted connection between Hauer and Iniki was like an underground stream subtly navigating the man's turbulent existence in a world where everything is always changing. In addition to being his life companion, Iniki served as Hauer's psychological rock during a career full of difficult, lonely characters. Hauer was able to keep his career clear of controversies and the downturn that many of his peers experienced because of this long-lasting, stable partnership. Additionally, it was Ineki who urged him to get more involved in charitable endeavors after 2000. After a brief fight with pancreatic cancer, Rutger Hauer died on July 19, 2019, at his home in Beetstertswag, Friesland, the Netherlands. He was 75. On July 24, 2019, following a private burial, the public was informed of his demise. Fans around were shocked and saddened by Hauer's demise. The odd coincidence that he passed away in 2019, the same year that his character Roy Batty in Blade Runner also died, was especially pointed up by many. This just strengthened his legendary role's symbolic significance. Mrs. Iniki ten Kate, Hauer's widow, honored her husband's memory by carrying on the Rutger Hauer Starfish Association's operations after his passing. Iniki is regarded as a private individual who seldom ever appears in the media or in public. As a result, the public has limited access to information on her present life. In addition to being a gifted actor, Rutger Hauer was a kind man who dedicated his life to serving the community. For everyone who respected him as well as for global film, his demise was a huge loss. Rutger Hauer continued to have a thriving artistic career into his latter years. He worked on a variety of motion picture, television and video game projects, showcasing his adaptability and persistent dedication to acting till the very end. Hauer narrated Daniel Lazarski in the critically acclaimed sci-fi horror video game Observer in 2017. His capacity to adjust to new technology was demonstrated in this performance, which also demonstrated his unwavering love of telling stories. He portrayed the Commodore, a dark, emotionally complex and enigmatic person, in the highly acclaimed Western film The Sisters Brothers in 2018. Despite playing a supporting part, Hauer made a big impression. Hauer voiced Master Xehanort in the popular video game Kingdom Hearts III in 2019, just before his health began to decline. This part showed that he always contributed a certain emotional gravitas, no matter the medium. Rutger Hauer made the decision to reside in the tranquil Dutch countryside of Friesland during this time. He retreated into a more private existence and stopped making frequent appearances in the media, concentrating on writing, personal endeavors, and upholding the Starfish Foundation's operations. He maintained a free and reflective rhythm in his life by living like a contemporary hermit, not isolated from society, but discreetly removing himself from the bustle of the entertainment industry. Rutger Hauer, 75, died at home in July 2019, following a brief fight with pancreatic cancer. In keeping with the secretive demeanor he kept throughout his life, the news of his passing was only announced after a private funeral. Over 170 appearances in movies, TV shows, and video games were part of Rutger Hauer's nearly 50-year career. He was also known for his ability to give each character a unique human dimension in addition to his fearsome antagonists and unstoppable heroes. Anything that, even after only one performance, left spectators in awe of him. He was a staunch environmentalist as well. Rutger Hauer joined the effort in 1994 to liberate Greenpeace co-founder Paul Watson, who had been jailed for opposing illegal whaling. A genuine artist lives outside of the stage, as Hauer recognized. In real life, they have to stand up for principles greater than themselves. Beyond action and art, Hauer left behind a silent but profoundly significant legacy. To help students and aspiring new filmmakers, he set up filmmaking seminars in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Hauer taught more than simply acting methods in these courses. He imparted knowledge on how to observe the world with open eyes, how to follow one's creative inclinations, and how to infuse even the tiniest character with soul. Cinema was more than simply a profession to him. It was a conversation between mankind and its most profound isolation. Rutger Hauer continued to pursue his lifetime hobbies in addition to his work, designing and fixing trucks and motorbikes, a hobby he had loved since he was a little boy, took up a large portion of his leisure time. For Hauer, every trip and every car was an expression of individual liberty, freedom from fame, success, and social pressures. Every phase of his life and profession was infused with that sense of independence. A 1995 Dutch postage stamp honoring Rutger Hauer used a picture from the 1973 movie Turkish Delight, which introduced him to the world. It was a celebration of those who made a lasting impact on their country's culture rather than short-lived superstars. People don't only think of fiery, rebellious personalities or blue eyes in the rain when they think of Hauer. They recall him as an honest artist who always sought the truth in each part rather than performing to win over the audience. On and off screen, they recall him as a philosophical renegade who lived, loved, battled, and left without ever easily compromising. In addition to his contributions to science fiction film, Rutger Hauer has influenced our understanding of the universe as a whole, which is complicated, delicate, and always worth defending. In addition to being a gifted actor, Rutger Hauer was a living example of compassion in life and artistic independence. Hauer demonstrated throughout the course of a career that lasted over 50 years that it was possible to be compassionate, empathetic, and honest with oneself while yet living and acting ferociously and blazing across the screen in parts that were unstoppable. Blade Runner's Roy Batty was simply one outstanding example. However, Rutger Hauer's whole life, from big and little parts to humanitarian endeavors, silent filmmaking studios, and his daring travels in his own custom-built automobiles, was what really made his fame unrepeatable. Many important prizes were given to him in recognition of his accomplishments. The Netherlands Film Festival's 1981 Golden Calf for Best Actor. For his performance in The Legend of the Holy Drinker 1989, he won the Rembrandt Award for Lifetime Achievement Best Actor at the Seattle International Film Festival. Even after his passing, Hauer's legacy endures thanks to several more accolades from foreign film festivals. The picture of Roy Batty, leaning his head in the chilly rain and letting out a cry of human anguish, has become more than just a single movie. It now represents the beauty of souls that have the courage to embrace the limitations of earthly life, to fight, and to love. We will always remember those times, the parts, the silent deeds, and the sincere words. Like tears that never go away amid the never-ending rain, they will stay. Those who were impacted by the universe that Rutger Hauer built will always remember him as the artist of freedom and the philosopher rebel. Please leave a remark below if the journey of Rutger Hauer, a guy who lived and breathed freedom, resonates particularly with you. What was your favorite of his performances? What struck you as the most profound aspect of Rutger Hauer's life? Your opinions would be much appreciated. And if you appreciate thought-provoking tales about art, movies, and the people whose passions genuinely impacted the world, please remember to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming tales, press like to show your support for the video, and subscribe to our channel to go with us in the future. Your likes and subscriptions are what keep us going and enable us to share more important articles like this one. We appreciate you joining us as we enter the remarkable, unrestricted, and very human realm of Rutger Hauer. I'll see you in the upcoming video.